Whoa, it's a little cooler this morning. Good morning, glad y'all are with us. Glad you could join us. Come on in and have a seat. It may be cooler, but we didn't get any rain. I was hoping to get some. The ground's so dry, we'll walk across it and the grass crackles under your feet. Thought I might tell y'all about when we first joined the Park Service as volunteers. We had an absolute ball working with the Park Service up in the Great Smoky Mountains. Let me tell you first of all how that came about. Laura and I were just reading a magazine one time, and we were sitting in the office talking, and she said, "Hey, look at this." And I looked at it, and it was a call for volunteers from the U.S. Park Service, and they were putting in a new program called Volunteer Patrol, or Visitor Patrol or Protection. And what it was the law enforcement rangers were wanting some help too. You know, like up here in the Great Smoky Mountains, anytime during their operating period, there are 2,000 volunteers, more than paid employees in the Great Smoky Mountain State Park. It's the most visited park in the United States. Over 10 million, probably up to 11 or 12 now. This was at least 10 years ago. And so they were calling for volunteers. Now this program was only going to be instituted at 2 parks in the United States. On the East Coast here, it was going to be the Great Smoky Mountains State Park, and out on the West Coast, it was going to be Yosemite. Well, I didn't quite want to go that far yet. We weren't that adventurous, but the Great Smoky Mountains State Park's just a couple hours drive up the road. So we said, well, let's volunteer for it. So we filled out the paperwork that was there, and I can't remember if it was a physical form or they gave a web address and Laura applied for it online, but we applied. Didn't hear anything. You know how that goes. You apply to something and then you set it and forget it, and you don't hear anything about it. Well, one day we got a call, and Laura told me about it. Said they've got an opening in that Park Service. We applied for the job, and I said, yeah. And so we called them. It was for the area over around Cades Cove. And the ranger over there said, yeah, we'd like to have you, but it's such and such a time. And that didn't coincide. We had shows already scheduled for that time, and we couldn't do it. But we told them thank you. We'd check back, and we would like to be considered. It sounded like something we'd like to do. So anyway, a couple of weeks later, we get a call from another ranger who is working the other side of the mountain, and at Elkmont area and Sugarland's Visitor Center. He called, said, listen, and started telling us the times, and we said, well, we could make that. He said, one of the stipulations, like I said, this was for the law enforcement folks, you had to have previous law enforcement experience even to apply. Well, since Laura and I were both certified police officers and had worked for the State Patrol in the state of Georgia, it was, right up our alley and theirs too. So it looked like a good fit. So we told them, yeah, we'd like to be there. So we hooked up the motorhome. They were supposed to give us a place to park the motorhome and yada yada. No pay involved. We worked so many hours a week and patrolled around, and it was explained to us that our main job would be anything from handing out pamphlets to rescuing folks in trouble. Medical problems, car problems was the main thing we ran into. We did run into a few rescue situations and had to call the rescue crews out, one thing and another. But anyway, I bounce around a little bit in the story. So anyway, we headed for Gatlinburg and the Great Smoky Mountains. So anyway, we get there. We check in at the visitor center. They call the ranger that's actually overseeing us. There was another ranger in the headquarters that was in charge of the overall program in the park. We met her, interviewed with her a little bit. She called the ranger. He came, we followed him up towards Elkmont Campground. Now, we weren't going to be put in the campground. We had a separate location that was in the ranger housing area there just outside of Elkmont. They had several residences, but they had 2 sites with full hookups for campers. There also was another couple already on site there. They were from Mississippi. Both of them were retired law enforcement, so we had something in common. Was good. So we got set up. I mean, when I talk full hookups, I'm talking they had cable for you could get cable and everything else. We got set up. The first day, like I said, there was another couple, and they were on duty one day, we were on duty the next. We did about 3 days a week, each one of us, alternating back and forth. And there was a car that was issued to us. We had a little Prius hybrid. Now, I'm telling you, I hadn't had much to do with electric cars, and I thought, an electric car running up and down these mountains? But anyway, I was totally impressed. Over time, I became even more impressed. The little car just handled the mountains and the roads without a bit of problem. So anyway, we got set up. We got our orientation done. We got maps to what we were doing. We got it explained to us, on paper what your duties were. Well, let me tell you about the first day. Laura and I struck out. We always made the first, we got into a habit. The first thing we did was we checked in at headquarters. We usually went to the radio room first. When we parked down at headquarters, we'd walk in. We had access to the headquarters building. We'd go to the radio room, check in with the guys there. Hi, anything going on? Have you got anything we need to specifically take care of? So anyway, the first day we ran into, we were down at a campground. Actually, not a campground, there's a picnic area called Metcalf Bottoms. Beautiful place right on the little river. Had all kinds of picnic facilities, had restroom facilities. It had a permanent volunteer that handled that area. He patrolled through, made sure that the campground was clean. We're going through the campground at Metcalf Bottoms, And there's a bridge that comes in from a road that actually goes across the mountain towards Pigeon Forge. I forget exactly what the road's called. It might be called something like Greenbrier Road, because the Greenbrier School was around there, and the trail out to that. But anyway, I'm noticing there's a 18-wheeler crossways of the road, angling. He's diddling back and forth trying to get an angle to get across a bridge, and he can't fit. So I pulled up and I got him stopped, and I talked to him. I said, "What are you doing over here?" He said, "Well, my GPS said to come this way. I was looking for a shortcut to get to Gatlinburg and over the mountain to Cherokee." And I said, "Well, this ain't it. You passed a half a dozen signs that said nothing your size could even be on this road. And there's a reason for that. This bridge wouldn't take it if you could get on it. You can't make this turn and get on it." So he got a little lippy and yeah, and then I said, "Well, you just stand by. I'll be back with you." So I got on the radio, called for a ranger. And a ranger, we just met him that day, fella named Chuck, big, healthy young man. And he wasn't happy to be bothered by that 18-wheeler being there either. He ended up writing the fella a couple of citations. But anyway, that truck couldn't turn around, and we had to back him up that little 2-lane blacktop for over a mile. Chuck at one end, me at the other, and we're walking him down the road till we finally got to a road that he could back in. Now, it took him a while to get squirreled around and get backed in that area. Finally got him turned around. Chuck ended up writing him a couple of citations, sent him on his way. But he wanted to blame it on his GPS, and like I said, I knew for a fact, because Laura and I went up the road to look, that he had seen at least 3 signs that said, "Do not come this way," in even a box truck, because you can't get across the bridge and the road won't take it. Here he was in an 18-wheeler. So anyway, that was our first incident. Let me tell you about our first bear encounter. This was a funny one. At the end of the day, before we went back and signed off, Laura and I always stopped. There were only certain places in the park where you had cell phone communications. One of them was a place called Maloney's Point. Well, Laura and I pulled up to Maloney's Point, and she was making a call, calling home to see how June was doing and check in. We usually checked in with June every day. So we were sitting at Maloney's Point. Laura was on the phone. I was sitting in the car and had the window down. And I kept hearing this sucking sound. And I'm looking over at the road, and of course the other side of the road out of the parking area went straight up the mountain, but it was covered in blackberry bushes. And the blackberries were, blueberry bushes, wild blueberries. And the blueberries were ripe. And I kept hearing this sucking sound. And finally, I managed to look through the foliage enough to see this bear. Now imagine this. Here's a black bear laying on his back up against the mountain, just laid out, and he's reaching up with a paw and pulling a blueberry bush down, and he's sucking the berries off of this bush. He just pulls the limb down, clears it, gets him another one, and I can hear, he's sucking hard enough for me to hear him clear across the road in the parking lot. And I punched Laura and I said, and I pointed where the bear was and she could see. And we sat there for a good 20 minutes watching that bear suck blueberries down. It was one of the funniest sights I ever saw. So anyway, join us again. We come to you every Friday. Tell your friends if you liked it, if you heard anything. We got 100 bear stories to tell you. I mean, some people go to the park for decades and never see a bear. And of course, we got to see bears almost daily with bear jams, because they'd call because people will just jump out of their cars. I'll tell you about that too. And leave them in gear going down the road to try to get a picture of a bear in the Smokies. So y'all join us again next week. We'll be glad to have you. Check out our website. We've got videos. We make pottery. This is a pottery. If you joined us on the first one, you know that we built the pottery here. And we'll include a tour of that. But until next time, see you later. Have a good day.